there was 4 or 5 different people. It's basically your experiences with Toastmaster. So little Yaquina Toastmaster Club was in the big TMI magazine going worldwide. So
Wow. Good representative.
And I will send the sign-up sheet around, so please look into the future and fill in roles. And with that, I will hand it over to our Toastmaster of the day. Please help me welcome Brian Haggerty.
Madam President, good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My theme this morning is back to school, but it may not be what you're expecting, because my question is, back from what? And the answer, of course, is back from what is called the summer setbacks, or the summer slide. 3 months during which the kids have not been in school, and it takes them forever to get back into school and get back into that learning pattern. The reason for this particular setup, there are actually 2 theories why we did it this way. One is, of course, the kids have to help get the crops in. The other, though, is simply heat. It's too hot during the summer. Back in the 19th century, before there was air conditioning. So both of those answers are essentially 19th century answers, and the question becomes, why do we hold on to this pattern? It probably disadvantages all American kids, but it especially disadvantages low-income kids, because they spend their summer watching TV and playing video games, whereas higher income kids get taken on trips and they go to camp and they go to museums and they continue to learn in that summer period. So I'd like to talk a little bit as we go through the morning about the concept of year-round school. This morning we do not have a grammarian this morning. It's Ruth is not here.
yeah, and I have not seen anything from Ruth since she said she'd be here.
So we can and ah and so all, and get away with it. I do have it, just because as I was driving in here, I heard a really great word on NPR, liminal. Liminal refers to at the doorstep. And there's actually a term in the law, motions in limine. These are the motions right at the beginning of the trial, as a matter of fact, before the trial actually starts. So liminal is the door as you step through into a new room.
Good word.
Christina Book is our timer this morning. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your duties as timer?
Yes, I will be timing the speakers, the evaluators, and table topics if we have time for them. I will be using our super high-tech papers to tell you when you are done. Green if you have like a minute or so, minute 30 seconds left, halfway through, and then red is you should be totally done. Why are you still talking?
Thank you. Our first speaker this morning is Avital Miller. Best-selling author Avital Miller's new book, Healing Happens, has won 3 awards. Avital is also an international keynote speaker, healing breakthrough facilitator, and a global dancer. Avital's speech is entitled Healing Happens, Stories of Healing Against All Odds, and she will be evaluated by Lee Ritzman.
And the time.
Oh, and that work? Okay.
Sure. I
How long?
haven't timed it, so
9 minutes.
we'll just see what happens.
Okay.
Just talk until you get the red key.
This is a story you haven't heard yet. Wearing Your Medicine. Herbal Remedies for Healing the Gut with Mary Woods. You don't learn to walk by following the rules. You learn by doing and by falling over. Sir Richard Branson. Mary Woods is an herbalist and founder of Sea Siren, which produces sustainable medicinal clothing. She has developed a broad background in several holistic modalities, including herbalism, permaculture, and reflexology, Reiki, neuromuscular therapy, and the Suzuki method of playing music. These have helped her sick. I felt that I had alcohol poisoning, but later found out I had contracted a beef tapeworm from a hamburger. It took me 8 months to fully discover the cause of my illness. After I became sick, we sailed for 3 months, during which time I often felt nauseated, bloated, and had no appetite. By the time we got back to South Carolina, where we lived, my hair was falling out. Every time I ate something, I would throw up and my stomach would become distended, and I was having panic attacks. Worried about my condition, I went to the doctors. The doctor declared, "It sounds like you have an ulcer," or "It sounds like you have fill in the blank." I went to every Western medical doctor possible, but nobody could tell me what actually was wrong. Or they put me on anti-anxiety medication, which didn't help. Then I experienced what I like to call a divine intervention. One day, I was drawn to an office across from where I worked out and met a nurse who had trained in many different holistic modalities. She had 2 dachshunds, ages 18 and 21, that drank alkaline water, and she fed them a raw diet. It was my first exposure to this way of thinking, and the first time I had ever seen a far infrared sauna or an alkaline water machine. She explained, "You got all the symptoms of a parasitic infection." Within a week, I had the appropriate testing, which had confirmed the diagnosis. I had a beef tapeworm that was estimated to be 3 meters long by that time, because I'd had it inside me for so long, as well as an Asiatic yeast infection and other problems. Once your gut lining has been compromised by parasite, you get food allergies and a whole cascade of things happening in your GI tract. Always very sensitive, I had tended toward those types of problems as a child. My parents called me the high maintenance child, but now I say I'm highly refined. Something I think happens to lots of highly sensitive people. After getting the diagnosis, I took a pharmaceutical that killed the tapeworm, and it came out in pieces. She actually said it kind of came out looking like a condom. The parasite had eaten my stomach lining, the part of the body that protects us from pathogens and all sorts of contaminants that are in our food. Once you have a parasite that compromises your stomach lining, it's very easy to get other parasites because there's bacteria in all foods. As a result, I started getting wave upon wave of adverse reactions to food as I was developing food allergies to almost everything. My father was in the pharmaceutical insurance business, so I had grown up with a strictly Western approach to illness. I got chronic sinus infections and was sick all the time as a child. Now I realized that I was sick all the time because I was fed antibiotics like candy and was eating dairy and wheat, which contributed to my illness. Antibiotics, which are not specific enough to kill only bacteria in the gut, kill the good bacteria too. In doing so, they create an imbalance in proper gut flora, which can lead to depression, leaky gut, poor food assimilation, and weight gain, among more serious conditions, all of which can be helped by probiotics and digestive enzymes, which can help down food. So reeling from the after effect of decades of antibiotics, I was receptive when the nurse who currently diagnosed me with a parasite offered, there are plants that I think would really work for you in a tea: comfrey, calendula, meadowsweet. She recommended using far infrared sauna, drinking alkaline water, taking supplements like hydrochloric to help my digestive tract fire enough to kill some pathogens, and going on an elimination diet. Consequently, for an entire year, I only ate yams, the one food to which I didn't have reactions. A Chinese medicine practitioner told me that's because the yam is a toning food. And another woman explained that root vegetables repair the gut lining. I also began drinking the tea recommended by the nurse 3 to 5 times a day, which is what ultimately repaired my leaky gut. Then I started noticing that I could add some other foods without having reactions, but it took me about 2.5 years to heal. I wouldn't say I'm fully rebalanced now. When you basically lose your topsoil, the immune lining in your stomach, it's a big deal. I'm even more sensitive now than I was before. Taking probiotics is probably always going to be a part of my life to avoid having symptoms. And some wisdom to remember. In her healing journey from a parasite, Mary Woods learned that even once a parasite is gone, the lining of the stomach and digestive tract may need to be repaired to heal leaky gut and prevent allergic reactions. She also gained the awareness that a stressful lifestyle is one of the biggest hurdles to healing, and discovered the importance of treating the body like a temple and eating good food. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
All right. While we are waiting for Lee to work on his evaluation, perhaps we could hear from our general evaluators, Svetlana Rakimova, with a little description of what it is she's going to do for us this morning.
Okay. Normally, I'm used to the general evaluator's role to sit quietly and take notes and speak at the end and give her feedback on the overall meeting proceedings and giving feedback to those who were not evaluated, like yourself and evaluators and even the timer. But if you want me to introduce the evaluators, I will do that.
Oh, all right.
Would you like me to introduce the evaluators?
Thank you. That would be a great thing for you to do.
Okay. The first evaluator, Lori, will evaluate Avital's speech. And then Brian Norris will evaluate Kathleen Ritzman after she delivers her speech. Is that correct?
We did have one little change. Lee is standing in for Lori this morning because she couldn't be
Oh.
here.
Yes. Of course.
And
Yes.
You ready to go?
You want me to go now? I can.
Okay, let's do that.
My knees Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I am at the liminal on this evaluation. That was not a proper use. So there I go. Count the so's, because I'm going to try to work on not doing that. Avital's speech was a specialty speech from the Advanced Communication series titled Read Out Loud. So if you thought she was looking at her notes a lot, she was supposed to look at her notes a lot. She was supposed to read and do an interpretive reading from a literary work, making effective use of voice, rhythm, and body movements. She was to create an auditory and visual experience for the audience. So I started out with that, and I shouldn't have. First of all, my impression of Avital when she came up here was that she was very nicely dressed as though she were giving this speech to a conference, and had that air of being able to not just come in casual and for Toastmasters. One of the things that I would have had her do would be to explain to the Toastmaster what her objectives were, or give him a copy of it, so that when he introduced her, he could have explained to everybody else that she was reading her speech for a purpose, and that's the objective of it. So as far as the reading goes, there's another stove. I've got to read it.
Mark that down.
It was interesting that she selected the interpretive reading from the work that she did, because it fits very well with what we know Avital speaks a lot about. And her, yes, so she did cover it, and she covered it in a good amount of time. Was the theme clearly understandable and the narrative of the storyline clear? To me, it was very clear. Obviously, she started out explaining about the author being on a boat and then having this experience with the dietary issues and having had it for years. Did she make effective use of voice variation, tone, mood, inflection, rhythm, and body movement to create an auditory and visual experience for the audience? She did not dance. She did have her hands going and doing gestures as much as she could, holding the book. One of the things that might have been able to do would be have a clip or something so the book stayed flat and you could actually really do the gestures like you usually do. And did the reader convey a sense of the author's style? Obviously, if you're reading exactly what the author wrote, then you're conveying the author's style. Did the reader present the work leading to a crisis or a major climax? The work that she chose didn't really have, in my opinion, a major climax, but it did make a very good progressive explanation of how she found that the problems she was having with her health were related to the tapeworm, and how she changed her diet, so it was very logically presented. Were the introduction and transitions informative and effective? That was part of what she read. And did the reader create an illusion of spontaneity during the presentation? That could have been a little different had she not been reading it, but the objective was to read it, so I'm not sure how to do that one. But one thing that I would have had her do, especially where we have people who were listening and we're not sure how well the microphone picks it up, was speak a little bit louder, which is usually something you define at. And I think while you were trying to do the reading, maybe it came across a little quieter. But the overall presentation, in my opinion, was done very well. And whether you like the the author and the following it, I thought she presented the author's opinions very well as well. So very good job. I'll fill out this form, submit it. I do spill a lot, don't I?
4 times that vote. And
In-
then 2 hands.
I got another one.
In countries where they do use year-round school, for example, in Japan, they go April to March in 3 trimesters. In Australia, they go late January to mid-December. But it turns out, and I was very depressed to find this out, they don't get any more net days in school. They still only have 180 days. They go 9 weeks and then take 3 weeks off, and then 9 weeks, 3 weeks off. I just don't understand why everybody says education is important, but our kids are only expected to spend half their year in school. To me, that's a kid's job. Learn some stuff. Go to work. I guess it's just me. Our second speaker today is Kathleen Ritzman. She's been a member of Toastmasters for over 20 years. She is a retired high school English teacher. She is still concerned about issues facing adolescents. Hence her speech, which is entitled, "Many Ways to Be a Girl, but Only One Way to Be a Boy, The New Gender Roles." This is speech number 4 from the Competent Communication Manual. How to say it. Use words and arrangements of words that effectively communicate the message to the audience. Use clear, accurate, descriptive, and short words. Her speech was 7 to 8 minutes.
Hello, Toastmasters. I had a very interesting experience the other day as I was reading the New York Times. There was an article in it entitled, the very title for my speech, that there are many ways to be a girl, but only one way to be a boy, the new gender rules. And it was an assessment of a survey that has been taken recently, mostly focused on middle school students who are not often heard from in the gender discussion and the responsibilities and opportunities that come to young people these days. It was, however, done by a group that is very pro-gender equality. And we're going to talk about the gender equality in just a few moments. But let me give you an opportunity to understand, see the kinds of things that this survey was talking about. First of all, it is very obvious that boys are the ones that lag most behind in the gender equality. It may sound like it is the girl, but as you read the survey, you discover very quickly that 83% of the girls all say that they have got great opportunities in the STEM program, whether it's engineering, science, math, and so forth. They find themselves really, really liking these classes. And if you look at current statistics, you will find that most of the students that are in college right now are girls. Most of the ones that are in the doctoring and law professions, they're coming up as girls. And I think part of the reason for this is that we have opened up the gates of opportunity for girls that were not there many years before, certainly not as I was growing up. The other thing that they noticed, though, is that there is a lot of pressure on girls to really look a particular way, that their boys around them are constantly asking. I was not aware of this, but even in middle school, they are asking for sexy pictures from girls, preferably naked. And girls really resent being seen as objects. And it only gets worse as they get into high school with this kind of pressure. What surprised me, again from the survey, was the tremendous amount of pressure that the girls are receiving from their parents, mothers particularly, to dress in ways that objectify themselves, that their appearance, the clothes that they wear, the color of their hair, the shoes that they wear, all of this makes a big difference for how they're perceived by the world. And I notice, and I'm sure you have too, in advertisements on TV, sometimes even law programs have the women not dressed in nice suits, but something kind of sexy to emphasize their femaleness as compared to the men that are in the courtroom. And so we have not yet gotten beyond this element that makes girls objects. The other part of the survey that I found very interesting had to do with the boys, that they felt that there were only two things that defined themselves as boys, whether or not they were strong and athletic or stoic, that is, not very expressive of their emotions. The question then becomes, is it really unequivocally true that it's most important for boys to be able to express their feelings? As a girl, think for a minute. Do you want a boy who is morally and physically strong, able to stand straight and tall in a crisis, or someone that is willing to express his emotions and his issues? I think our society has not looked far enough along to the future in feeling that this is something we all need to try for boys. Maybe there's something else we need to be looking at, and that is, what about girls? Shouldn't they also be strong and tall and able to deal with situations? The article itself talked about boys in this situation. When a little boy wants something, he tends to whine. And so his daddy needs to teach him not to do that. And it is very typical for a 2-year-old to cry and stamp his feet and throw a temper tantrum when his ice cream falls off of his ice cream cone at 2. It's not appropriate for a little boy when he's 12. Fellow Toastmasters is not all right for anybody at age 12. It should not be something relegated only to little boys. We all need to learn these kind of stoic ways of dealing with our emotions and our feelings. Girls still carry on with the tradition of being able to create a drama at school, to whine and cry, to talk to their friends, to be seen as victims. And unfortunately, parents and society is continuing to encourage them to do this while insisting that boys have no emotional impression at all, expression. And yet if we don't step in and give us all that opportunity to communicate, to listen, to be compassionate, to walk in somebody else's skin, then we're certainly not doing the right thing by only relegating that change to boys. I am finding as a school teacher more and more that there is less and less empathy among both sexes of students. And I would like to suggest that maybe we're approaching this the wrong way. It is possible that we have been so concerned about equality that we are missing a more important word, which is equity. I'm not the grammarian today, but let me give you an example of the difference. A picture that has been going around schools for some time now looks like this. In the picture on this side, it is equal. There is a tall boy, a shorter child, let's do child, and a very, very short child. And they all have a box. They are equal. They have a box that they can stand on to look over the fence to see a baseball game going on. Equity, on the other hand, the tall boy who does not need a box does not have one. The middle child has a box, but the shorter child has 2 boxes, so that all of them can see the game and see what is going on. Now, there are different approaches to this. There is another one that looks a little bit different from the first, in that the height of the dirt that they are standing on varies for each of the children. And we have this child that, even though he can't see over the fence, has a knot hole that he can look through to be able to see what is happening during the game. And that this one on this side, with his hand raised and kind of a word number 1 mitt on his hand, is indicating support and encouragement, I suspect not just for the people out there, but also for his companions on his side. The thing of it is, we talk in education about a level playing field. We're not saying that every child is equal. Every child is unique and individual. And even parents, I think, do not always recognize that fact. I was talking to my mom one day about her process of raising us kids. And she said to me, you know, I didn't know you kids were different until I had your sister. I had a brother in between. So I'm the oldest, then there's Steve, about 10 months younger than I am, and my sister who is 4 months younger than 4 years younger than I am. And my mom didn't recognize that we were different from each other. And I think that it is very easy in this business world today to be able to look at our children and see them all the same. So I do have a recommendation today. I have been told that I failed to do that on many occasions. Here is my recommendation. First of all, that we look at things in terms of equity, that we are all unique and we all have particular needs. We need to know the children and the people that we're dealing with. Then we need to become a warm demander. This is a person who sets high expectations, but also makes it possible for the people they're involved with to succeed. And so we're not insisting that you do extraordinarily well, but also giving you the process that you might be able to reach there. Observe other people. How do they approach problems? How do they resolve situations that happen in their lives? And then look for ways that you can help them either expand those alternatives or to be successful in the process that they are following. Make it safe to fail. I have to admit that of all the things that I missed as I was growing up was living in a home where it was okay to do something wrong, to make a mistake. I remember trying to learn how to read, and I'm a little dyslexic, and so sorrow was always was, and other words that would get turned around in my mind. And I remember my dad banging a book on the table. Darn it, why can't you read that? Well, that wasn't helping me read, and the hollering at me was not helping even more. And so we need to make it okay to fail and maybe even celebrate failure a little bit and give people an opportunity, as my daughter does with her children during what we call family home evening on Monday nights. As they're talking, she will often ask them, what challenged you this week? What was difficult? And then, what did you learn from that experience? In other words, how do you grow from what happens? There is a final thing that I would like to suggest that goes along with this, and that is the third picture. I believe sincerely that if we treat people as unique individuals and not gender related or economic related or race related as a group, we can actually take down the fence. And then we no longer will have to provide the added assistance because they will be able to be free on their own and be able to be human beings, unique in their own skins. Fellow Toastmasters.
While Brian is pondering his evaluation, perhaps Krista Colway would like to lead us in some table topics.
Really quickly, I'm going to ask Dave this question. Thinking of school, back in your school days, what did you look forward to most and what did you fear most going back to school?
The dinosaurs.
Hello, Toastmasters. Some of you know from a previous speech I did a couple years ago, some of you heard this. But for the first 7 years of my school education, I had an undiagnosed learning disability. And it was to the point where they were going to put me in what was called the special needs classes by the time I got to 7th grade. And all of the kids knew that special needs classes were for the retards. Now, I don't like that term, but that's what people call this. I didn't enjoy school at all. I was a clown in school because to make up for the learning disability, I clowned around a lot. And it wasn't to be disruptive. Teachers didn't appreciate it, didn't understand it back then. But it was just my coping mechanism. In the 7th grade, when they first put me in the special needs class, I was there for 2 weeks. And I had a teacher who taught in Newport, Toledo, named Mrs. Gagliardi. And she pulled me out after class after 2 weeks and said, "You do not belong in this class." And I don't know that I really believed her. But she called my mom in and talked to my mom and said that he doesn't belong in this class. And I'm going to get him transferred to a regular 7th grade class. And she did that. And the new teacher took a special interest in me. Mrs. Galley already told her the issues I was having. And she made it a point to help me where I needed a little bit of help to get me up to speed. And by the end of that year, I was almost caught up with all the rest of the kids. My 8th grade year was in Mrs. Gagliardi's 8th grade class, and she was probably considered the most strict teacher in that class. Boys didn't like her very much. She didn't tolerate nonsense. But I loved her. She has saved my life. Thank you, Mrs. Gagliardi.
Some more for competition?
Yeah.
Would our honored guest, Paul, would you like to take a table topics?
Sure.
All right. Again, thinking back to school, what classes did you enjoy that you did the best at or the worst at?
Well, like Dave, I have trouble reading. I have dyslexia like Kathleen has. And so I always thought of myself as less than, below average, I'll say it that way. And my older brother, 2 years ahead of me in school, helped me to really bring that home, because he always would ask me questions that were at his level and that I hadn't learned yet. And therefore, the bottom line is, well, that's because you're stupid. Well, I believed it until I was about a sophomore in high school. I took a math class, and it was easy, and everybody else around me was having trouble with understanding these concepts. And I wondered what that came from. And so following that line, going into physics, taking chemistry, etc., I wasn't the dumb younger brother that I thought I had been told that I was. After my brother graduated from high school, joined the Marine Corps, left the home, I became myself, and for the first time understood that I could succeed without being considered less than average. So.
Thank you, Krista. Everybody would like to vote for a table topic. And hand them down to Krista.
Can you vote for two?
Huh?
Can you vote for two?
Really?
Sure, why not? What the heck? If you are ready, Mr. Norris, can you please present your evaluation of Kathleen's speech?
Kathleen. What a great example of a speech. I had a hard time doing, I was writing down as much as I could, but I was so involved in what you were saying, it was sometimes very difficult for me to stop and write something down because I was afraid I was going to miss something. So thank you. This speech, it was introduced very well, so I don't need to go over all of that again, but there are some things within the speech that we are to look for to give you some feedback. So we love the word so. You didn't use it. I was very impressed. We know where in the family it gets used. Was the speech appropriate for this assignment? Absolutely. Did the speaker use short and clear words? Yes. And with a caveat that when you did use some words that were a little bit larger or little, maybe we weren't quite as used to hearing if we weren't in the education field, that type of thing, you did explain those. Did you create mental images? Absolutely. In fact, I loved the examples of equity and equality. I do have to admit, though, that when I saw the picture, I wondered if they had paid to go to the game or not because they were cheating. And I had to stop and pull myself back because my ADD self said, okay, got to get back and listen again. Felt like I was in school. And I have to, and I did make a little note here. I was supposed to look for rhetorical devices and I didn't look for any of them, so I'm sorry. There was some jargon that you used. You said STEM and didn't explain what it meant. So my suggestion would be to make sure that if you are to say STEM, and you did, I believe you used it a couple times, that you say the word STEM, explain it, and then as you go on using it in the future, you can just say STEM instead of science, technology, engineering, and math, which I think most of us already knew, but I had to be critical something. Great introduction, great supporting information, great conclusion. So another suggestion as far as the speaking, I loved when you stopped for a second and you, ladies and gentlemen, it's never okay. And it was really good and you got us all going. As a suggestion, at that point, maybe slow it down for just a minute, let us finish with the laughter. And because when you kept moving on, I had a hard time because I was still, again, maybe my ADD self, I was enjoying the moment there and then I had to catch back up again. So as far as the pitch and gestures, those were all awesome. You may want to slow down the rate just a hair so we can all catch up in between. Loved a few, I have to write this down. I wrote this down here. Make it safe to fail. Celebrate failures. Take down the fence. You were sounding very Reaganish when you said that. Equality versus equity. I put down, did they pay for the game? And I loved the ice cream example. I very much enjoy it when you give speeches. I went way over my evaluation time because I loved what you did. Thank you. I look forward to more speeches from you.
At this time, if we could have a timers report.
Sorry, I distracted her. What?
Timers report.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Our times today, Avatal, you were at 8 minutes and 22 seconds. Kathleen, you were at 10 minutes and 33 seconds, so a little over. Our evaluations for the day, we were at 5 minutes and 1 second, and Brian, you were at 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Our table topics today, Dave Kaufman was 2 minutes and 2 seconds, and Paul took 1 minute and 25 seconds. Thank you.
Do we have a winner for the table topics?
We do. The last vote that just came in tied it.
Nice.
Congratulations to Dave and Paul. Can we do a picture? Off by one.
I feel like you're going like, ta-da! Good job.
So do you cut the trophy horizontally or vertically?
Ask Solomon.
I was just going to say, you'd be like
You're like
Solomon, decide which way to go.
Whoever wants to cut in half doesn't get it.
3.5 days at one office. 3.5 days.
There you go. Right.
Kathleen, while you were speaking, I thought of, and I don't know where I ever heard this, but men have feelings too. It's just nobody cares. Well, just to close out on back to school, don't even get me started on how advertisers have been allowed to get away with characterizing the process of going back to school. Back to school, yuck. Good thing there are lots of great clothes and products. Awful, disgusting waste of time, palatable. Well, I personally wonder if America is ceding its its leadership position by simply not stressing to our young people, you got to work. You are the future, but you have to work for that, and you have to be that next big wave. I think what this country needs is a nice shot at immigration. Some nice people from other places who are looking for the American dream and are willing to work for it, just like the Irish in the late 19th century and the Central Europeans about that same time. All of these big influxes of desire to get ahead and to share the American dream. But again, that may just be me.
Immigration too.
Oh, only if you can pick the people, right? Yeah, Lee's gonna give you a list if you're on it. Be at the boat. There's a train leaving town. Be on it. Okay, at this time, I believe we're ready for our general evaluation from Ms. Rockamova.
Thank you. Dear fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'm really a bit overwhelmed with today's meeting, although I must say it's a usual, normal meeting. Just sound was a little bit better than usual. I was absolutely impressed by the Toastmaster of the day, who took the theme of back to school and fully kind of unfolded the whole theme. So every outing of the Toastmaster was a little speech in itself, and we had an opportunity for nostalgia, for some memories, school memories we all have, and we had an opportunity to think of those memories. And he finished with criticizing the commercialization of back to school idea, and he even coined a new thing, saying that new American dreamers are actually the immigrants. So that was something really fresh. I listened very carefully how Brian was unfolding the theme, and I actually thought his justification was very logical, very well placed, and very well substantiated, that we don't need 3 months of setback because, hey, we have air conditioners. We're not suffering from heat anymore. And that sounded really, really fair. Our evaluators, of course, sometimes I think that evaluators are kind of table topics, speakers, because of very little time that they take to, digest and then come up with evaluation. So did Lee, and I was absolutely amazed how well he not only provided the analysis of Avital's speech, but his evaluation was peppered with humor, and he managed to give some advice to Avital, such as if she fixed the book on the lectern, she could have moved, made more gestures, and she could have talked louder because, she wouldn't be reading as she did, but then he corrected himself that it was interpreted reading, and she did very well actually reading. She was dressed up as if for a conference. So there were a lot of positive commendations, positive comments that he made. Now, Brian, I thought, had some more time for, to digest Kathleen's speech, and he started off with a big commendation for Kathleen's speech, but then he said it was difficult for him to find advice, to find recommendations. Then he went like objective by objective and actually provided very well-structured feedback to all aspects of Kathleen's speech. Again, his speech was peppered with humor. He made very good, appropriate references to his own school years, and took out the highlights of the speech. And for advice, like if I have to provide advice, I think my advice would be for Krista, the table topics master. mm, Probably it would be a good idea to repeat a question a couple of times, maybe at least once, so that everybody gets to think about it. And also it gives time for their table topic speaker to put his thoughts together or her thoughts together. I also thought that Christina, our timer today, was really not only good with her timing report, but she made a little feedback. She provided a little feedback, and also she managed to make her report a bit personal, saying, you took that much time, you went over time a little bit. So I like that personal touch very much. Overall, the meeting was, its usual self. People were laughing, there was banter, and at the same time, there was so much talent packed in this room. People, really like-minded people who understand each other. There is group kind of humor, like in-house humor, you call it. All of that put together. We started off on time, and it looks like we're going to finish on time if I stop speaking.
Well, I see by the clock on the clubhouse wall that that's all the time we have for today. So I'll turn it back over to Madam President.
Next week. So next week is the first meeting of the month, so it's our business meeting. So there'll only be one speaker, Avital. You're on the schedule, is that not correct?
Sure, I'll speak.
Otherwise, I mean, is anyone else working on a book speech? I've got one I've been kind of drafting. I mean, if you weren't ready, so that's.
Want to do it? You want yours?
I think I do. Yeah, I haven't done one in a long time, and I need to level up so we can get our awards. So our Toastmaster next week will be Svetlana. Then we have the business meeting. I'll be the speaker, evaluated by Ruth, hopefully.
Am I on there at all?
No, no.
I'll be a backup if she
Okay.
doesn't make it.
Grammarian, Laura Lee. Table topics, Kathleen. Timer, Jaylene. And general evaluator, Brian Haggerty. I will make a quick pitch. Our open house is a Halloween storytelling theme. I have a speech I'm working on. We can open it up just to speeches. Depends on how many people are interested. So start thinking of your ideas so we can sign folks up for
You're
different
gonna do
speeches.
speeches and not table topics.
It depends on how many people want to speak.
We figured we'd open up for up to 3 speakers, just so we can run through a couple of them, and I think we were thinking 5, 7, or shorter.
And that was
5 to 7 minutes,
7 would be perfect, yeah.
and then we'll just see, maybe we'll have a table topics person and just prepare like 2, just for, in case we have extra time.
And you made a really great little poster to start taking out. So
Everyone will get an email when I
Nice.
finalize it.
that's pretty cool.
I volunteer to be the food speaker because I have a special Halloween story I'd like to tell, which some of you have heard already. It's no fun.
Paul has one too.
Ask a question.
Yes, you got a question?
What's an open house?
Go ahead.
It's no fun.
She wants to know what an open
What's
house
an
is.
open house?
I would say we're always open for guests, but this is when we advertise it and we try to do something a little catchy. You know, there'll be a theme in the spring. We host the princesses, and that's open, and friends, family, whoever would be interested in seeing that.
So you can bring some, everybody from the chamber.
A few more people in the house.
Well,
Just trying to get a few people in to see the meeting.
and
And
we'll explain a little bit what the different roles are, so that way
Oh,
people
so I
understand.
really want to make sure I'm at it.
Yeah. Yep. And everybody from the chamber, yes.
What week did we choose?
it's
It's the 30th.
30th, the day
Okay.
before Halloween.
Okay.
And so I just noticed, so Abby Tall had put herself down. I would like to do one. We have Dave, so we have at least 3. Do we need to do a
Halloween.
speech competition to get it nailed down?
Hey, that would be great.
I wish they did.
Yeah,
It
if-
happens a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
If you don't do evaluations, because it's a speech contest,
Yeah.
that would save time.
Yes.
You could get more speakers still.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. And Paul was asking if we could wear costumes too. And I think it would be appropriate for those that would like to, but I mean, I obviously don't want to come like a dead person and go up to my work. So,
We have one for you that you had last time. You were Dracula. Yeah, I did. It's a cake. We just took it off.
oh, that's
We
right.
already have one for you.
We're
Okay.
not advertising costumes.
And then he goes up and does an embalming. Sure.
So we also have Laura Lee has a
Catering
story.
and door
Is that-
Yeah. I have one that I've done. It's the Deathly Hollows one, which I thought would be appropriate because I'm literally coming as Grim Reaper.
So,
So that's 4 speeches?
so right now we have 4.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think we're all excited about
You guys want to hear about Little Red Riding Hood?
it. And I have a new one. So
Nice,
I
okay.
did enjoy my one last year, but I just had inspiration last night. So
Ooh, very cool.
all right. I didn't mean to make us go longer, but our roles are filled next week, so we're doing great. And thanks everyone for a wonderful meeting.
All right.
I can announce that this week,
Bye.
Saturday, is
Bye-bye.
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I'm picking up my daughter from Boston on Friday night, and hopefully she'll be in full voice to help with that.
She's
But-
one of the
Oh,
soloists.
she's one of the soloists.
Wow.
And I'm short 3 volunteers, 2 of them for driving shuttle cars from the fairgrounds up to the middle school where the event is going to take place, and 1 traffic control person at the top.
Is that
I
here?
could